Welcome back to Star Trek Sundays, and today is a very special episode because I'm going to be taking a look at my first Exo-6 1/6 scale Star Trek action figure. I'm a little late to this party because Exo-6 got started a little over a year ago, producing some very high-end or museum-grade quality action figures. They started off with some figures from First Contact, Data, and Captain Picard, which, to my eternal regret, I missed out on. But in 2022, they announced a deluge of upcoming action figures, most of which have already been released in this year. In fact, there's so many, it's going to be very difficult for any Star Trek fan to keep pace and ultimately afford this very fancy line of action figures. I myself have had to really narrow my focus into which figures I really want to collect, and I've made a short list of which characters I'm going to be able to afford and which characters I'm going to be able to pick up in this line. And I've decided to jump aboard with Judge Q. I've always had a soft spot for this character. In fact, in my opinion, I'd even go as far as to say that he's one of the best things about the Next Generation, and I've always absolutely adored John de Lancey's very charismatic portrayal of this character. So let's start off by looking at the packaging. It does come in a standard 1/6 scale box. We know what to expect. It is essentially an oblong box. It is fairly wide but quite narrow. It has an outer sleeve, and I have to say I really love the presentation of this outer sleeve. On the front of the packaging here, we have this big central image of the figure himself, Q snapping his fingers there. There's a little bit of light behind that. I think this looks absolutely brilliant. This is a really great way to showcase this figure. You can definitely put this on display. It's a really brilliant photograph that they've taken here. The rest of the packaging is quite bland. They've kept it quite simplistic. It's black bands around the box. We have the logos of Star Trek Next Generation. We have the Exo-6 logo at the top of the packaging, and in the top right hand corner we have the standard Star Trek branding that we see on many different projects. We have that image of Captain Picard in front of a blue background. On the side panel we can see some of that central image has bled over, which is quite cool. We have the character name at the very bottom there, so if you wanted to stack these up on the shelf you could do. It's a little bit bland, this packaging on this side here. What we do have is the Star Trek insignia and of course the logo at the top of the packaging. This is in a reflective metallic material which really catches the light very nicely. If we flip the side panel though, on the other side we can see this fantastic artwork where we can see various members of the crew. We can see the Enterprise at the top there, and this is beautifully illustrated, copied from stock images, but very, very nicely painted. I think this looks absolutely tremendous. I love this artwork, and I think this is incredibly displayable. I think this looks fantastic on the shelf. On the back of this slipcase we have an image of the figure and of course his various accessories that come with him, and it's listed on the back there under the contents. We can see everything has been itemised, and then there's some small print about the company and of course the various legal bits and pieces, and surprisingly a barcode as well. Again, this looks absolutely fine. It's a little bit more bland in comparison to what we've seen on the side panel and the front of the packaging, but it's fine. We can of course remove this slipcase. We can simply slide it up to reveal the figure underneath in that wonderful window display. This time the side panels underneath are very bland. There's really not a lot of decoration going on here whatsoever. We just have the Exo-6 logo at the bottom of the packaging. The reverse of the packaging likewise is very, very minimalist. There's really not an awful lot going on here. It is just essentially the credits. But I do really like that we have under the tailoring Garrick quoted as being the tailor. I think that's a nice little cheeky touch which is quite fun. And so moving on to the figure himself. Well, I think one of the things that's really going to strike you when you first open this figure up is the incredible costume that he has. We've talked about tailoring there, and they've done a really very, very nice job on this figure. But before we get on to the tailoring, let's talk about that all-important head sculpt, because this likeness, I have to say, is uncannily accurate. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal likeness of John de Lancey. They've really, really nailed it. All his proportions, his skin tone, everything just looks spot on. And those eyes, there's that very glassy look in them where they look almost real, as if they're looking straight at you. This is incredibly done. I think they've picked a really nice neutral moments expression on his face as well, so he can be used in lots of different scenarios, and I just think it looks absolutely spot on. Now I do understand that if you remove the hat, that actually there's no hair underneath, he is bald, so unfortunately for anyone who wanted to say customise this figure, you're not going to be able to put him in a Starfleet costume or anything like that, it's not going to work, unfortunately. But for me, his judge costume is his definitive outfit anyway. I think this looks absolutely tremendous, and yeah, I just think this is such a fantastic sculpt, probably one of the best I have ever seen. He does, of course, come with his gold chain as well. This is a separate piece. It's lovely. It's made of metal with plastic pieces for the jewels. It looks very, very nice. It has a nice texture and weight to it, and it catches the light very, very nicely as well. So they've done a really nice job of this. The dimensions and proportions look pretty screen accurate to me, and I think they've executed this perfectly. I really like the use of different materials on this figure. It's very rich in terms of its textures. His shoulder tassel is a separate piece. It is sewn into the body of the costume, and you notice at the end of it, it has this very fairy material, which is quite different to anything else that's used on the rest of this figure. He has that big button at the top of the shoulder there, holding everything in place. Again, this is a nice plastic piece holding this together, but it looks absolutely brilliant. And I particularly like how they've approached the shoulders, because they managed to create that puffy effect by giving him shoulder pads. And if we loose this a little bit, we can see the shoulder pads under there to make sure that they always keep that volume and shape, that very imposing silhouette that he creates in the show. So I love that they've done this. This is screen accurate and it looks really good. Now, the main body of these robes is made from a very silky material. It might actually be silk. It looks absolutely fantastic. Underneath, we have his tunic, which is more of a cotton, and it has those individual buttons sewn in as well. And the hem of both the sleeves and the bottom of the robes have a very thin wire in them that will allow you to manipulate them to a certain degree to be able to create different shapes. Underneath this, we have another layer. We actually can see, of course, the rubber gauntlets. The hand is separated from the rest of the gauntlet on the wrist there. They're separate pieces, but they can be pushed together, so they look pretty seamless. This is a nice rubber texture, and on the upper sleeve, we have this black sort of skin-tight cotton material, again, which looks really nice. So it's really nice we've got these multiple layers here, and again, all these different textures and feelings are fantastic. And underneath his top two robes, we also can see he has trouser legs as well, which is made from a new material, a new kind of cotton. So this looks really, really good. It feels very nice, and again, it feels like he's very layered up in terms of this costume, and it just looks fantastic. His shoes are made from rubber, there's no laces or anything like that, so I think this works perfectly well. It's nicely sculpted and it certainly does the job. There's no issues with him standing freely, but he does come, of course, with this base as well. And I should point out that he doesn't have any socks, but again, not necessarily expecting them here. Now this base, I'm a little bit disappointed with it. It's very simple. It's just essentially a metal grill effect. It's obviously just a sticker. It doesn't look that convincing that he's on a metal base, in my opinion, and I think it's a shame, because I think there's an opportunity here. If they could have put some LED lights in this and a little switch that could have lit up, I think that would have made all the difference. As it is, it's just a little bit bland, a little bit boring. I just feel like it could have done with an extra sparkle, really. And we've seen this on some of the other figures, say for example Big Chief with their James Bond figures have lights in the bases, and I think this is such a wonderful effect and fairly easy to produce in this day and age, so I think it's a shame that we didn't get that here. The articulation of this figure is absolutely phenomenal. If we look at the head here, this neck can move all the way forwards and all the way back. The fantastic range of motion. Of course, he can look left to right as well, or right the way around if you want him to. It can lean from side to side, and of course you can roll it around as much as you want. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. I think they've done an incredible job. The articulation is coming from the neck as well as the head, and I just think this looks absolutely brilliant. Now he's also got ball joints, of course, in those shoulders, so his arms do kick up and out there. They also come forwards and backwards into the body and away from the body. There is, of course, bicep swivels, and there is double jointed elbows there that allow the arms to come all the way back. And one thing I should point out is just how nice and stiff these joints are as well. Nicely made, real sense of quality, and no danger of them snapping or breaking, which is brilliant. Now his wrist, of course, can also spin 360 degrees, and it will also hinge forwards and backwards. Not a huge range, to be honest, because I think that plastic gauntlet there is stopping it a little bit, but the functionality is there. And again, here we can see that arm coming in and out, being able to make the most of that articulation. He can reach right across to his opposite shoulder with his hand there, and he can arc it all the way back. I think this is brilliant. Now he has articulation in his upper chest and also in his waist area as well. And this gives him a good range of motion to be able to look from side to side, bend forwards and backwards, and lean left and right as well. Of course, he can hinge his hips as well, so he can kick his legs out to the side. He can kick them forwards and backwards. Although again, as I said, mine the joints are very, very stiff. I want to be very careful with this, so I haven't pushed them to the furthest extremities here. He also has a double jointed knee, so he can kick his legs right the way back if you want him to. Again, I'm only going half mast here really because I don't really want to push these joints too far too soon. But he also has a ball joint in the foot as well, so he can spin his foot from side to side. He can hinge it forwards and backwards, and even arc it from side to side as well. Now, my only real criticism of this figure is that it doesn't really come with an awful lot in terms of accessories. Obviously, this is a high-end collectible and we're used to a lot of accessories coming with these figures. Unfortunately, Q is quite light in comparison to some of the other figures we've seen in this line. If we think about the Benjamin Sisko, for example, which was, I think, a little bit more expensive by about £5 or £10, and it came with all sorts of extraordinary extra pieces. Likewise, the 7 of 9, various weapons and interchangeable hands and all sorts of bits and pieces which were really, really impressive. Lovely, well-built materials. Unfortunately, with Q, he only comes with an extra 2 sets of hands, and of course he already has that chain that we've seen earlier. Now, at first I thought, well, Q doesn't really have many items that I would associate with his character that they could have given him here. But then I remembered the Playmates 12-inch action figure from the 90s that included his staff and his gavel. And I thought, yeah, actually, they're really important pieces that would have been really, really fun to have with this Judge Q from Exo-6. It would have been really nice for him to have his gavel or to have that staff. Would have looked really, really cool and made this figure even more visually imposing and impressive. Sadly, they're not included here, and now that I've noticed that, it does bug me a little bit. What we do have though is very nice. I do love these rubber hands they've given him. They have all the texture of the glove, which looks fantastic, and they've recreated some of those key movements that he does with his hand in this show. We have the fist, we have the snap fingers for his clicking his fingers. I think this is my favourite of all of them. He has his pointing finger as well, which I think is a really nice touch. Again, very iconic for how he holds that in the show. And I just think they've done a very, very nice job with these hands. I just wish that he had a few extra pieces, but all in all, I have to say, I think this is a really impressive figure, a very nice start to my own personal collection. I really think this sculpt is absolutely phenomenal. I love the textures and materials they've used on this costume. I think it does look, yeah, museum grade is a very good description. I think this does look incredible. It's going to look fantastic on display. And I'm looking forward to filling out a next generation collection like this, because I think, you know, he's a really, really solid start and absolutely fantastic stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.